We learned in the cartoon we just watched that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. We learned in the video that m stands for slope and b stands for y-intercept. We also learned in the video that slope can be found by looking at the change in our y values over the corresponding change in our x values. This can also be seen by taking our y coordinates and subtracting them, and then dividing that by the x coordinates and subtracting them. In slope-intercept form, the y-intercept is the point where the line crosses the y-axis. And as an ordered pair, that is the ordered pair where x is 0 and y is some number. If we look at the four equations that you see below, we should be able to identify the slope in the y-intercept. In equation number 1, y equals mx plus b, we are in slope-intercept form. The slope is always found by looking at, for x, and looking at its coefficient. So here's my x. The coefficient of x is 2. So in this equation, my slope is 2. The y-intercept is the constant. It is the number here that has been added onto the end and has no variable associated with it. So in this case, my constant, or the number with no variable, is 5. So my y-intercept is 5. My second equation is also in slope-intercept form. Y equals m, the x is on top, plus b. We can rewrite this by understanding that there is a 1 in front of the x. Y equals 1 over 2x minus 3. My slope is always the coefficient of x. Remember, it's found directly in front. So what is x being multiplied by? My slope here, the number in front of x is a 1/2. My y-intercept is always the constant. So if I look at the y-intercept here, my constant in this equation is a -3. My third equation is not written in slope-intercept form. I'll notice that there is a 2 in front of the y. So the first thing I need to do before I can identify the slope in the y-intercept is to get rid of this 2. Y is being multiplied by 2, so to undo that, we're going to divide it. And if we divide the left-hand side by 2, then we also need to divide the right-hand side by 2. That's going to make this equation say 2 over 2 cancels out, y equals 6 over 2 becomes 3x, and 4 over 2 becomes 2. Now that my equation is in slope-intercept form, please identify the slope and the y-intercept. Right, in this equation, your slope should have been the coefficient of x, which is 3, and your y-intercept should have been your constant, which is 2. Please pause the video and find the slope and y-intercept of number 4. Your slope should have been -5, and your y-intercept should have been 2. Another thing that you learned in the video was how to graph a line that is already in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. When I think about graphing, I think about that m standing for move and that b standing for begin. Y equals mx plus b means I am going to begin with my y-intercept of -1. Put a point there on the graph. The slope of this equation is 2. Coefficient of x is 2. The video talked about how slope is rise over run. And so in this, 2 is the rise, and it's over understood 1 because 2 divided by 2 is 1. So my run is 1. So it means we're going to go up 2, and we're going to move positive or to the right 1. So from this point, I'm going to go up 1, 2, and right 1, 1, 2, and right 1. And I just continue to do that pattern and fill the coordinate plane. Once I have at least 3 points on my graph, I will connect the points with a straight line, and I will put arrows on either end. Right? In our second example, again, we are going to begin with our y-intercept, which is 5. we are going to then move with our slope. Our slope here, remember slope is rise over run, and our slope is 1/2. So we are going to rise or go up 1, and we are going to run a +2, which means we're going to go to the right 2. So from this point, we are going to go up 1 and right 2, up 1 and right 2, up 1 and right 2, and we will continue to fill the coordinate plane. At this point, we can connect our dots with a straight line and making sure that we put arrows on either end. In our third example, we should see that our y-intercept is -2, and that this equation has a slope that is equal to -3. Okay, in the denominator, there's an understood 1. Remember, we rise using the number on top and we run using the number on the bottom. If my number on top is negative, rising means I'm actually going to have to move down. And if the number on the bottom is positive, we always move to the right for positive or to the left for negative. So from this point, we are actually going to move down 3 and right 1. Down 3. Sorry, I can't count here. 1, 2, 3, and right 1. And then we repeat until we fill the coordinate plane. Of course, when we're finished, we connect our dots with a straight line and put arrows on either end. The last thing that the video talked about doing was being able to write equations in slope-intercept form. The name slope-intercept form tells me exactly what I need in order to write the equation. I need a slope, and I have to have the y-intercept. In A here, I have a slope, and I have a y-intercept. Remember that slope is m, y-intercept is b. So we're ready to write our equation. Y equals my slope times x plus my y-intercept of 1/2. In our second example here, my slope is 0 and my y-intercept is 9. Y equals mx plus b. And I can either leave this like this, or I can understand that 0 times x makes 0. And so this becomes y equals 0 plus 9, which simplifies to just y equals 9. In my third example, my slope is -4 and my y-intercept is 0. You try writing this equation in slope-intercept form. My answer should say y equals -4x plus 0. And if I simplify that, that becomes just y equals -4x. Using what we learned in Unit 1, we can write the equation of the line for ordered pairs that are given in a table. In the video, we looked at how do we go from 7 to 11? We add 4. And how do we go from 11 to 15? We add 4. In our x value, we look at 1 to 2 is adding 1, and 2 to 3 is adding 1. We previously said that slope is the change in y over the change in x. My y is changed by 4 for every time my x is changed by 1. 4 over 1 gives me a slope of 4. The video also mentioned that the y-intercept occurs when the x value is 0. I don't have an x value of 0 in my table. So I'm going to put an x value of 0. And just like we did in Unit 1 where we wanted to back up, I can back up from 1 to 0. I can back up my y's as well. If I'm adding 4 going forwards, I am going to subtract 4 going backwards. So 7 minus 4 gives me a y-intercept of 3. And my equation would say y equals 4x plus 3. My slope times x plus my y-intercept. In our final example, we're given a graph. Remember, to use slope-intercept form, we have to be able to identify both a slope and an intercept. In the video, they said, let's begin with B. Remember, B can also stand for begin. So my B is my y-intercept. If I look at where that is located on my graph, I've gone up 1, 2, 3 on my y-axis. So my y-intercept is 3. Then in the video, what they did was draw lines to get from one point to the next. So to get from the top point to the bottom point, I went over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right, and I went down 1, 2, 3. So change in my y values, or my rise was -3, and my run was +5. So my slope there is -3/5. And now we're ready to write our equation. Y equals slope times x plus our y-intercept.